Welcome everybody. My name is Veronica Cartagena and I am with the Bougainvillea House. We are a family therapy center. We provide counseling for kids up to young adults and their families who are working through behavioral health issues and substance use issues.
Hello, I'm Marcia Morris. I am a licensed mental health therapist in the state of Florida. I am also an ADHD certified counselor. I work mostly with adolescents, teens, and some adults with focus on anxiety and depression and difficult life transitions, and obviously the ADHD component for mostly kids, adolescents, tweens, that age group. So happy to be here.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about social media and its effect on our youth. So we are sharing our screen so that we have a couple of slides for you. So we're just going to jump right into, just why don't we talk a little bit about exactly what social media is?
Yep. So here we've provided you guys with the definition of what social media is. And although, you know, in our world today, social media is so huge that most people know exactly what it is and have an idea of the platforms and everything. But so, you know, from a definition standpoint, it's an interactive, digitally mediated technologies that facilitate the creation or sharing, exchange of information, ideas, career interests, and other forms of expression via virtual communities and networks.
And that's the key word, right?
Yes.
When we're talking about expression and that it is a community.
Right, exactly. So today we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of that expression and kind of how we're seeing it on different platforms, and really, I mean, how it's evolved into such a huge community and the impact that it's had on the individuals in our communities. So how has social media impacted mental health in teenagers? Has it A, decreased risk, B, increased risk, or C, no impact? So give you a second to think about what do you think.
Yeah, and most people think that there is no impact, right? Because it's such a positive thing. You get to reach out to people you might not see every day.
Right. Which is kind of crazy to think about, you know, how big it is in our world that it would have no impact. So actually there has been an increased risk on the mental health in teenagers, which when you think about it, makes sense because it is so prevalent in our world. You know, we've seen such a huge increase of how it's impacted teenagers, especially in the last year with the pandemic, but just over the years in general, in various ways of how it's impacted, which we'll go more into it. But there's definitely been an increased risk. So that's the fact right there.
So here, when we start talking about the magnitude of how big social media really is, so 95% of our teens are online. And what that equates to in numbers, we are talking about 45 million people.
So when we break it up between the tweens and the teenagers, so kids between the ages of 8 and 12 are spending 6 hours a day on social media and entertainment. Our teenagers between the ages of 13 and 18 are spending 8 hours, actually almost up to 9 hours a day, which, as you know, that's a full-time job.
Exactly.
So when you think about how many hours a day, that's a lot of time spent on social media, and that's in addition to what you're spending on with school. So that's a huge impact.
Right. And so since I know that we're talking to mostly, you know, this is going mostly to teens. So when you think about, you know, just even a study session, right? Like you spend maybe a couple hours studying for a test and how much information you're taking in and how much you're memorizing and learning and having to remember for this test. So imagine that 6 to 8 hours a day, how much is going into your brain and how much you're retaining from what you're seeing in social media. So kind of going back to that last slide about increased risk, that's, you know, that's a huge part of why. It's because it's so much time being spent on it. And the other part is, you know, those ages between 8 and 18, I'm just going to kind of generalize it here, but is such a huge social development stage for these children and these teens, and that's really where you're getting to know yourself in social self-esteem and just kind of creating your social groups and things like that. So imagine spending that much time and the impact that it's doing on all that.
Yeah.
So what is the most popular platform amongst our teens? I was a little surprised by this one, and maybe it's because I don't know, because I'm older. I don't know. I think I'm always surprised by this answer. But so is it A, YouTube, B, Instagram, C, Snapchat, or D, Facebook?
Which one did you think?
So I guess since I use Instagram the most, I thought it was going to be Instagram because it's been, I think, the most user friendly, I guess, you know, like for me at least.
Yeah.
So, but it's not.
No, YouTube is the #1 platform right now. The most used
sense.
platform. And there's a lot of, you know, people are watching movies on there. So it's not just that you're scrolling through, you know, your life reels or anything like that. You're also looking at videos, music videos, which was not so big anymore, like on MTV back in the day.
Right.
You're doing all of that on YouTube.
Yep.
And people actually have their own YouTube channels, which is
right.
interesting.
I guess that's, you know,
So YouTubers.
Right, YouTubers, and I you know, that's just me being, you know, thinking, oh, Instagram's so user friendly, but I forget that, you know, this next generation is so tech savvy that it's like, okay, no, like YouTube there's so much more to do there. So
and soon TikTok will be up in the rankings, but right now it's still YouTube.
Absolutely.
Well, there's your answer.
All right, so the power of like with our youth. So, and I think this is something that, you know, if you're involved in that social media world, you do understand the way that likes work. But there were some surprising aspects to what the power of a like can do. And so, you know, we're going to talk about the effect of virtual peer endorsement, which really, when we think about it and kind of keep going through it, it's really peer pressure, right? So we'll kind of talk about how peer pressure has made its way into the social media world, especially with the power of a like.
But Oxford Academy has come out with some studies showing that the more likes that are on certain pictures, you're more likely to actually like them. So there's that trying to fit in, right? So that peer pressure of trying to be in that group.
Yes, exactly.
And which is interesting because you would think you kind of just like what you like, but it doesn't work that way.
Right. And we kind of, you know, Veronica and I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but we, you know, understand that this is a huge way of how peer pressure has made its way into social media, is that, you know, a lot of individuals don't want to feel like that odd person out, or, you know, if you're not liking something that so many people have liked, it's like, well, you start thinking about like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I not on the same page as everyone? And so adolescents are more likely to like pictures with many likes than photos with few likes. So, and then some studies show providing likes to others on social media related to brain activity implicated in reward, right? So we think about how the brain works with, a reward system, and reward systems are actually a huge part of managing behavior and impacting the behavior of somebody. And so if you think about likes as a way that is a rewarding feeling, then that person's going to continue that behavior, or, you know, you might seek to do like a behavior like that, right? So again, you know, that peer endorsement. And then finally, of course, not getting enough likes can increase depression and anxiety, which is very sad to think about, because it's, you know, since social media is such a huge part of our world right now, and the power of like is an actual thing, knowing that it's increasing depression and anxiety is very sad, because people are looking for affirmation through likes, which can come from people that don't even know you. And so it's kind of, you know, you're thinking about, well, I just need this like in order to boost my self-esteem, or to make me feel a little bit happier, or to make me feel a little bit more relaxed when we think about depression and anxiety.
So here are some of the negative experiences that social media can cause. Because, you know, again, in addition to the like, there's so many other things. And this is, you touched a little bit about the affirmation, right? The highlight reel, you know, so are you, you know, what does your life look like compared to someone else's highlight reel?
Right, exactly. Which I've heard so many times. And actually, one thing that has come out more is there have been more people coming out saying, don't always think that what you see on social media is real and what is really going on. And so that's been, you know, there's obviously the ups and downs of social media and their positive negatives. And so that's been, some people can use it for good. And that's been one thing that I have seen more of, is that people are being a little bit more real with saying, look, this is, you know, it's the whole Instagram versus reality. Right. So that's a big part of the highlight reel. Then there's the FOMO, fear of missing out, isolation, and then depression and anxiety. So those are all negative experiences that social media can cause. So what is technology addiction? All right. So when we look at technology addiction, we're actually looking at excessive preoccupation with being online, such as social media, apps, gaming, videos, you know, anything that has to do with the online world. And then it's poorly controlled urges or behaviors that lead to using technology in a way that lead to impairment or distress in one's daily life. And so we've talked about that. We talked about this in the past and in other webinars and videos that we've done, but a big part of it is that a big question is, you know, when do we know that it's becoming an issue, or when do we know that it's a problem in our life? When it starts to impact your functioning, your daily functioning. And that's why it says, you know, creating impairment or distress in one's daily life. It's because, you know, at this point, you know that it's an addiction, or you know that it's a problem when you can't concentrate on things going on in your daily life, or when you're struggling with areas in your daily life that maybe you weren't before, or, you know, for whatever reason, you can't access online that day or technology that day, and it creates a whole issue, right? And so that's what we're looking at when we're looking at technology addiction.
Yeah, and a lot of times teenagers and kids that are going through school feel that they can do their homework and still multitask while they're on their phone.
Right.
And as much as we like to think that we can, it's not really possible. You are not really putting your whole focus on what you are trying to study for. So when you don't get great grades that you're expecting because you spent 2 hours studying, it wasn't truly 2 hours studying if you're also looking at your Instagram and posting and things like that.
Absolutely. Retaining that information is different at that point. Yeah. All right.
So moving to cyberbullying, right?
Yes.
This is a big issue. I mean, bullying has been an issue and concern for years. It's nothing new. But now you have access to millions of people on one platform, right?
Exactly.
So this is now becoming such a huge part of online messaging, which is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of just thought about how much easier it's becoming to cyberbully because people are creating fake accounts, which I don't think was, I forget what they call Finstas, I think they're called, right? Fake Instagrams. But, you know, now people are creating these fake accounts where it's making it much easier for them to cyberbully because you can't backtrack, or, you know, obviously if you really dig in, you can, but I think it's just making it more accessible for people to do the cyberbullying. So about 37% of young people between the ages of 12 and 17 have been bullied online, and 30% have had it happen more than once. So you think about, think about those numbers actually just in your group of friends, so that, you kind of get an idea of the number of people that are being bullied online. And then 23% of students reported that they've said or done something mean or cruel to another person online. And 27% reported that they've experienced the same from someone else.
Yeah, which is big. And as you mentioned, I mean, yes, a lot of people do create fake accounts, but at the same time, you have all these other platforms like TikTok, for instance, that you don't have to have an account. you know, and what you post,
Right.
you know, remember everything that you post, what goes in the cloud stays in the cloud. You cannot get it off. So, but it doesn't stay necessarily on your account. So
Right.
they think, oh, it's gone,
Right.
you know, but it really continues to make an effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, just looking at those statistics right there and looking at the fact that, you know, the people that have said something mean or cruel to someone maybe experienced that themselves, you think about that as a cycle, you know? And so, imagine you said 45 million users?
45 kids. Yes.
Yes. So imagine how many times that cycle is happening throughout a daily basis.
And you tend to be more courageous to put things on social media as opposed to face, right? So I always say, oh, you're like Superman behind the screen,
right?
Because you're not in front of that person,
right?
But it's much more impactful and hurtful because now you're not just talking to that one person that you might not be saying some, you know, or you're saying unkind words. Now you're sharing it with the world.
Exactly. And other people that may be feeling that same way are reading this and they're impacting them. And so Instagram is actually one of the social media sites where most young people report experiencing cyberbullying, which I've actually seen it. And it's very, very, very sad, very impactful to see what people are saying to others. And so 42% of those surveyed experiencing harassment.
Yeah, which is a whole other animal. There's one thing, you know, where you're getting bullied, and then another one where you're actually feeling harassed.
Right.
That can be, it's not just hurtful. Now you're talking about fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. So these are some of the effects of cyberbullying. You know, some people experience fear. Some people experience anxiety and depression, low self-esteem, self-harm, and suicide. So when you think about the effect that cyberbullying can make on someone, it's not just, oh, you hurt their feelings. It goes to the extent of suicide. And so that's knowing that suicide is something that's such, you know, top leading cause of death in teens. We have to be careful with what we're saying to each other online. And definitely if you see somebody that's getting bullied online, you know, say something, stand up for that person, you know, so that person can feel a support. And you can prevent a suicide potentially.
And we're seeing a lot more of self-harm, right? Self-harm is becoming, you know, pretty prevalent in the community as well.
Yeah.
Because again, you know, sometimes when we talk about or when we see, you know, when people are saying hurtful things online, it's not just that you're saying things that are hurtful. You might be catching them at a moment in their life when they're really low.
Exactly. Right. And then we have to remember that self-harm is it's basically a coping technique, coping mechanism that people have taken on as a way to deal with the issues of their life. And so, you know, self-harm can be happening, you know, when we don't even know it, when people are reading these things. And you might not, like we said, you might be saying it to one person online, but that other person is reading that.
Yes.
And so all of this is public. We have to remember that this is not private. Not saying that private would make it any better. We shouldn't be saying these things to each other in general. So how do we counteract these things? Healthy ways to increase dopamine levels. So number one, I think in general for depression, anxiety, you know, issues to when you're dealing with difficult times, exercise is a great way. Meditation is another good way to kind of focus on those positives in life and counteract those difficult situations. And then eating foods that contain amino acid tyrosine. So healthy foods that are going to, it's, you know, food for the mind, food for, you know, things that are going to make you feel better physically. And feed those good nutrients to your brain.
Yeah, and this is from a neurological level, this is something that truly does happen. So a lot of times we might not think about it, but just like with the likes, the whole, you know, there's sound, visual, and then smell, right? That also affects our brain. So a lot of times it's the like, you hear that ding, you know, somebody's either sent you a message or like, so that is kicking those dopamine levels, right?
Right.
So this is a more natural way that you can actually get that same feeling. So we don't always necessarily know how social media is affecting us neurologically. Like we just think we like it. We're just, you know, we can't be without it. We want to know what's going on, but it is having a physical effect,
Right, exactly.
which causes you to want to go back.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that a lot of work that I do with teens, we talk about exercise, right? And it's like, oh, exercise, really? I don't want to go for a run or whatever, you know? But what we're talking about is finding things, physical things that you like to do that are going to give you those same dopamine levels that are going to create that same happy feeling that you get from maybe a like, or, you know, obviously this is a whole nother topic, but like, you know, risky behaviors give that type of sensation as well. And so if we start to try to replace it with things such as going surfing or going, you know, skateboarding, or just kind of like those exciting activities, you know, some people take on like gymnastics or whatever it is, you know. So exercising is not just like, oh, going for a run or lifting weights. Just talking about doing some type of physical activity that's going to increase those endorphins. Again, meditation and healthy eating are two other great ways. So, of course, kindness matters, okay? So think before you comment. When you see something negative online, try to put yourself in their shoes. Keep in mind, a lot of posts are made when people are vulnerable and emotional. On social media, you have the power to connect with friends. Use this power to spread kindness. And remember, when you see something, say something.
Most important, right?
Yes.
Because just remember that even though it might not be happening to you, it could be happening to someone else. And sometimes they just need, you know, that help.
Right.
You know, and be kind. It takes, you know, it takes a village.
Yes.
This is our community. And, you know, there's nothing, I was going to say there's nothing wrong with being kind, but it's actually the opposite, right? It's so much more powerful to be kind and exciting. And sometimes, you know, people can just use a nice smile, a wave hello. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily spend all your time in leadership and what have you, but just be kind.
Right.
You know, be kind.
You never know what someone is going through. So it's important that we view the social media world and the online world as a community, and how impactful a community can be when it's used for the positive. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We hope you learned some good points on social media. It's a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good with social media. You know, just remember that we want to continue to make it a positive.
Supportive.
Yes. Post some nice pictures, you know, enjoy your friends and family, especially those that are away, especially those that you can't see right now.
Exactly. Yep. Using it for a supportive platform where you can post things that encourage others, and just feeling like, you know, you're not alone and things that you're going through as well. So.
Which is exactly what it was intended for.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
So thank you so much.
And if you have any questions or concerns, you could always reach out to us. We are at www.tbhcares.org. There's a wealth of information on there. There's also a take a break page, which is my favorite because we all need one. So here's a way to actually exercise those few minutes that doesn't have to be outside of physically exercising, as Rocio had mentioned before. Listening to powerful sounds, music, bloopers, whatever it is that actually gets you through the day and puts a smile on your face.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.